The whisper that froze Keanu Reeves stood quietly in the corner of the airport lounge. Wearing a black hoodie and jeans, he was trying not to attract attention, as usual. He didn't like being in the spotlight unless it was for a film. Today, he just wanted to get home after a long shoot overseas. The flight was delayed. The lounge was crowded, and the air buzzed with quiet complaints and rolling suitcase wheels. He sipped his black coffee slowly and stared out the tall glass window. Airplanes came and went. People hurried past, and announcements echoed from the loudspeakers. It was an ordinary day. Until at WASN single quotes T. A little boy, around 7 years old, stood alone near the vending machines across the lounge. He had a small blue backpack that looked too big for his shoulders. He clutched a toy dinosaur in one hand and looked around nervously. His eyes stopped when they saw Keanu. The boy didn't blink. He just stared. After a moment, he walked straight toward him. His steps were small, but steady. Keanu noticed him, smiled gently, and gave a polite nod. He thought maybe the boy was a fan. Children often recognize him from animated movies or action scenes they'd seen online. But the boy didn't ask for a photo. He didn't ask for an autograph. He stood close to Keanu, barely reaching his waist, looked up with wide brown eyes, and whispered, "Can you help me? My mom told me not to talk loud." Keanu knelt down slowly to meet his eye level. The boy's face was pale, and his hands trembled. There was something strange in his voice. Not fear of being lost, but something much deeper. Something quiet and serious. Keanu leaned in and said softly, "What's wrong, buddy?" The boy whispered again, this time even lower, "He has a gun in his coat. He said if I told anyone, he'd hurt her." Keanu's heart stopped. His eyes scanned the lounge quickly. He stayed calm. He had learned long ago how to keep his face relaxed even when his soul was burning with worry. He gave the boy a soft smile and said, "Okay, you're safe now. I'm going to help." The boy nodded and clutched his dinosaur tighter. Keanu stood up and looked around, trying not to draw attention. He noticed a man sitting alone near gate 47. The man looked calm, but his hand rested inside his long coat. He seemed to glance often at a woman sitting a few rows away. The woman looked tense, like she was trying to stay still and quiet. Keanu didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. His voice was steady and low. "This is Keanu Reeves. I'm at JFK Terminal 4, near gate 47. There's a possible threat. A child just told me a man has a weapon and is threatening his mother. Please send help fast. I'll keep eyes on them." The dispatcher recognized his voice but kept it professional. "We're sending officers now." "Can you describe the man?" Keanu gave a detailed description, every feature, every movement, every glance. He didn't miss a thing. Years of acting had taught him how to observe human behavior deeply. Now, it was saving lives. He gently placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and led him behind a row of chairs, keeping him low and out of sight. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll be right here with you." The boy nodded again. His lips trembled, but he didn't cry. He was brave. Just then, the man in the coat shifted in his seat. He stood up and adjusted his jacket. He looked toward the woman and then toward the boy's last position. His eyes narrowed. Keanu tensed. He slowly stood in the man's path, pretending to stretch and yawn, casually blocking his view. It was risky, but Keanu had faced fear before, not just in films but in life. A voice crackled from the loudspeaker. "Security personnel, please report to gate 47 immediately." The man's eyes flickered. He turned his head quickly. Something changed in his posture. He reached inside his coat. Keanu moved closer, ready for anything. But then, a loud voice shouted, "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" Armed officers stormed in from the side. Travelers gasped and ducked down. The man turned, panicked, and ran toward the emergency exit door. But he didn't make it far. 3 officers tackled him to the floor and secured his hands behind his back. A small silver pistol fell out of his coat and slid across the floor. Gasps filled the lounge. Some people screamed. Others pulled out their phones. The woman stood up, shaking, and ran toward her son, wrapping him in her arms. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Keanu stood still, breathing slowly, watching it all happen. His heart finally began to slow down. The boy looked up at him with pure trust in his eyes. "You helped us," he said softly. Keanu knelt down and smiled, eyes filled with emotion. "No, you helped her. You were the brave one." Just then, one of the officers came over. "Sir, we appreciate what you did. Most people would have panicked. That boy's mother. She says he wouldn't be alive if you hadn't listened." Keanu nodded humbly. "He saved her. I just listened." The officer looked impressed. "We'll need your statement, but after that, you're good to go." The crowd began to return to normal slowly. Some recognized Keanu. Some clapped quietly. But Keanu didn't want applause. He just walked over to the boy and kneeled again. "You're strong, you know that. Next time someone scares you like that, you tell someone. You did the right thing." The boy whispered, "Thank you." Keanu stood up, gave a small wave, and walked away to a quiet corner of the lounge. He picked up his bag and his cold coffee. The terminal felt different now, like something sacred had just happened. Like the world had paused to show what courage looked like, not in the man who acted, but in the child who dared to speak. And in that moment, Keanu Reeves knew this day would stay in his heart forever. Asterisk the name that changed everything. Airport lounge slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but something invisible had shifted. The floor still carried the echo of that gun falling, of gasps held in throats, of quiet heroism. Keanu Reeves sat alone now, back near a window, still holding the now cold cup of coffee. He wasn't thinking about his delayed flight anymore. His mind kept going back to that boy's eyes, so quiet, so brave, and too old for his age. Officers had taken the boy and his mother into a private room to keep them safe. Keanu had given his full statement, careful with every detail. But as he sat there, a uniformed officer returned, this time with urgency in his steps and a strange look on his face. "Mr. Reeves," the officer said softly, glancing around to keep others from hearing. "Can we talk in private?" Keanu stood without a word and followed the officer into a secure side room. The door clicked shut behind them. "We need you to know something," the officer said, lowering his voice. "The man you helped us catch, we ran his prints. He's not just some random guy." Keanu leaned in, listening. "His name is Leon Marshall. He's wanted in 3 states. He's part of a child trafficking ring. He's been on the FBI's radar for months. We didn't expect him to show up here, under a fake name and with a child. We believe he was using the boy's mother as leverage. She's not even related to him. He kidnapped her last week." Keanu's eyes widened. The air in the room grew heavier. The officer continued, "You didn't just stop a threat at the airport. You may have saved others, too. We found a second phone on him, and there are text locations. We're opening a full investigation. This runs deep." Keanu said nothing at first. He was too stunned. He had only followed instinct. He hadn't imagined it was this big. "Where are the mother and boy now?" Keanu asked. "Safe," the officer replied. "The woman's name is Elena. The boy's name is Samir. They're in protective custody, getting medical checks and support. But Elena's been through a lot. She's not ready to talk much yet." Keanu nodded slowly. Then something pulled at his heart. "Can I see them? Just for a minute? I think Samir might want to know he's not alone." The officer hesitated, then nodded. "I'll ask." A short while later, Keanu stood at the doorway of a quiet, windowless room in the airport's security wing. Inside, Samir sat on a padded chair, hugging his dinosaur again. Elena sat beside him, her hands trembling in her lap, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as Keanu entered. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then she stood up. "Thank you," she said in a cracked voice. "Thank you for listening to him. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't move. He said he'd hurt my son if I even looked at someone wrong. I froze. I'm so sorry." Keanu stepped forward gently. "You don't need to say sorry. You protected your child the best way you could. And he was so brave." Elena burst into tears. She covered her face, sobbing. The trauma spilled out all at once. Samir looked at her. then ran into Keanu's arms. Keanu held him tightly, kneeling again, steady and silent. You okay? He asked softly. Samir nodded against his shoulder. You came back. Always, Keanu whispered. After a few minutes, a counselor came in to help. Keanu stood, gave a warm smile to both of them, and slowly stepped out. But before he could leave the room completely, Samir's voice stopped him. Can I give you something? Keanu turned around. Samir walked over, holding the toy dinosaur. This helped me be brave, he said. You should have it now. Keanu knelt again, deeply moved. I can't take your dinosaur. I want you to, Samir said. You helped us. Keanu hesitated. Then he reached out, took the toy gently, and nodded. I'll keep it safe, just like you did. Outside the room, the officer was waiting. There's more, he said. We've been digging into Leon Marshall's phone. There are names, files, pictures. This might open up a whole operation. Keanu rubbed his forehead. You need to tell the press. We're going to, the officer said. But we'd prefer to keep some details quiet for now. Leon had connections. The wrong people might get nervous. Keanu understood. But something didn't sit right. He looked at the dinosaur in his hand. Can I help? The officer looked surprised. How? Keanu's voice was quiet but certain. I want to do more than just walk away from this. If I can bring light to this case, to this issue, I will. The officer considered it. We might take you up on that. As Keanu left the airport later that night, his flight rescheduled. For the next day, he felt heavy and light at the same time. What started as a routine layover had turned into something much bigger. He had always believed that small acts of kindness mattered. But today, kindness had unwrapped a much darker truth. And now, there was no going back. Back at his hotel room, he placed the dinosaur carefully on the nightstand. It reminded him of courage. Not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet, real kind. The kind that comes from a child who whispers the truth, even when he's scared. Keanu stared at the ceiling as he lay down. His eyes stayed open for a long time, because he had a feeling this wasn't over. Secrets hidden in the drawer. When Keanu Reeves didn't sleep that night, even though the hotel room was quiet and comfortable, his thoughts were anything but. He kept thinking about Samir, the way the boy looked at him, the strength it must have taken for a child that young to speak up, and the woman, Elena, her eyes haunted by something she couldn't say. Keanu had seen trauma before, but this felt different, deeper, like something wasn't done yet. The next morning, he received a call. It wasn't from a movie agent or a producer. It was from the officer he had spoken to at the airport. Mr. Reeves, the officer said, his voice tense. We found something we didn't expect. Can you come back to the station? Keanu didn't ask questions. He got dressed, grabbed the toy dinosaur, and took a cab straight to the airport security division. When he arrived, the officer led him to a private room. On the table was a small notebook, spiral-bound, child's handwriting on the cover. This belonged to Samir, the officer explained. He must have been using it during the time he was with Marshall. We found it in the backpack. Keanu sat down slowly. What's in it? The officer pushed it toward him. Open it. Keanu flipped the pages. At first, it was innocent. Scribbles, drawings of dinosaurs, stick figures. But then, halfway through the notebook, things changed. There was a drawing of a large building, with no windows. Inside, small figures sat in rows. A big man with a red shirt stood in front of them. Next to him, in shaky crayon letters, were the words, "Bad place." He says don't tell. They cry a lot. Keanu stared at it. His hands went. Still. The next page showed another drawing. A woman tied to a chair. Two men standing nearby. One had something in his hand. Maybe a phone, maybe a weapon. The shape was unclear. But the message was not, "Samir drew these." Keanu asked. Yes, the officer replied. And what's more, we believe these pictures might match. A real location. Something federal agents have been tracking. A real place? Keanu asked, shocked. Yes. We sent the image to the team investigating child trafficking rings. They believe the building in Samir's drawing might be connected to a warehouse outside Newark. The details, even from a child's perspective, match a location they've Had under surveillance for weeks. Keanu leaned forward, gripping the table. You're saying this boy may have seen something real and dangerous? We believe so, the officer said. And there's more. He pulled out a small paper from an evidence bag. This was tucked in the back of the notebook. A list of initials and numbers. We're running it through databases now, but the initials, some of them match known aliases. People tied to organized trafficking networks. Keanu sat back. His mind spun. This little boy, so quiet and scared, had been sitting on a storm, and he was the one who had started to blow it open, with nothing but crayons and courage. What about Elena? Keanu asked. Does she know? We showed her. She broke down. The officer said quietly. She said Leon Marshall forced her to stay silent, told her they'd hurt her son if she ever tried to leave. She wasn't just afraid. She was trapped. Keanu felt a deep ache in his chest. Can I see them again? You can, but first, we have to ask, would you be willing to help us more directly? This case is going national, maybe even international, and your name, your voice, could help people come forward. Victims, witnesses, we're building something bigger now. Keanu didn't hesitate. I'll help, anything you need. Later that day, in a quiet family room at the Child Protection Unit, Elena and Samir waited. They looked better than before, less shaken, more calm, but there was still sadness in their eyes. When Keanu walked in, Samir jumped up and hugged him tightly. You came back, Samir said again, like it was a promise he needed to hear. Twice, of course I did. Keanu smiled gently. And you gave me your drawings. They helped us. Samir looked surprised. Really? Yes, Keanu nodded. You're helping us stop the bad guys. That's what heroes do. Samir smiled a little, then whispered, I just didn't want them to hurt her. Elena stood and walked over. Her voice trembled. I don't know how to thank you. I was a waitress. I had no family. When he offered me a better job, I believed him. He said it would be easy work. He was charming at first. Then everything changed. Tears filled her eyes. He took our passports, our phones. He said, if I ever tried to run, they'd take Samir, sell him. I believed him. Keanu reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You survived. You protected your child. That takes strength. She wiped her eyes. But how do we go back to normal after all this? Keanu looked at her for a long time. Then he said, you don't have to go back. Maybe you go forward to something new. I'll help. Elena blinked. You will? Yes. Keanu nodded. I have people, resources. We'll find you a safe place, counseling, support, whatever it takes. Just then, another officer entered. Mr. Reeves, the task force wants to brief you on something. They say it's urgent. Keanu turned to Elena and Samir. I'll be back. He followed the officer into a nearby room. A large monitor was on the wall, showing satellite images and maps. Agents pointed to a red circle, the warehouse Samir had drawn. We confirmed activity at the site. An agent explained. It's bigger than we thought. We believe children are still inside, being moved, hidden. Keanu's jaw clenched. When are you going in? Soon, the agent said. But here's what's strange. The name listed on the lease documents. Keanu raised an eyebrow. The agent flipped the file open. The documents trace back to a holding company owned by a man named Caleb Bryant. He's a tech investor, runs charities for children, speaks at conferences. A public figure, Keanu whispered. Very public, the agent nodded, and very protected. Keanu's blood ran cold. Are you saying, he said slowly, that someone praised for helping children is behind all this? The agent looked grim. Yes, and if that's true, this is just the beginning. Keanu stepped back, the weight of everything pressing down. A boy's whisper at the airport had just uncovered something massive. And now they were in a race against time. Asterisk the raid, and the room no one knew existed. The sun had barely begun to rise when the black vans rolled out of the federal building. Inside each one, highly trained officers checked their gear in silence. They knew the mission was dangerous. They also knew the enemy wasn't just a criminal. It was a system built on shadows, silence, and fear. KeanuReeves sat inside one of the vans. dressed in plain black, a bulletproof vest underneath his jacket. They didn't usually let civilians this close to an active operation, but Keanu wasn't just a civilian anymore. He had become a thread that pulled the curtain open, and now he was in it, all the way in. "You sure about this?" one of the agents asked him. Keanu nodded. "I'm not here to get in the way. I just want to see it through." The warehouse was located on the edge of an abandoned industrial zone near Newark. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than a forgotten building from the past. Rusted walls, broken signage, overgrown weeds. But inside, it held secrets that had never seen daylight. As the team approached, silence fell over the comms. Night vision cameras were in place. Drones hovered above, scanning for movement. Keanu sat still, heart steady, hands clenched around the toy dinosaur Samir had given him. A reminder of what they were fighting for. "Go," the team leader whispered into the radio. At once, the vans burst open. Agents swarmed the building. From three sides, the main door was breached with a loud bang, followed by the crash of boots on concrete. Clear left. Hallway secure. 3 detained in the office, no resistance. Keanu stepped out of the van, flanked by 2 officers. He stayed behind the safety line as the main warehouse floor was swept. Inside were rows of crates and storage shelves, none of them suspicious at first glance. But behind one wall, they found a false panel. It looked like metal, but it was just painted wood. One of the agents pried it open. Behind it was a hidden hallway, narrow, cold. The walls were covered in soundproof foam, and at the end of the hall, a heavy door with a keypad lock. The lead agent pulled out a breaching tool. "Stand back." A loud pop. The door flew open, and what they saw made the air feel like ice. Inside was a room no one ever should have built. It had small bunk beds along the walls, a camera fixed in each corner, one tray of uneaten food in the middle of the floor, and toys, old, broken, silent. The smell was a mix of bleach and sadness. It was clear this wasn't just a room. It was a place where someone had tried to erase joy. One of the agents stepped forward. "No kids here now. Looks like they moved them fast. Maybe hours ago." Keanu stared at the walls, stunned. His stomach twisted. He had seen sets designed to show human cruelty, but this was real. And it was worse. Just then, another agent called out from a second hallway. "We found computers, documents, recordings." They all rushed to a back office. A desk sat there with multiple monitors still running, folders filled with fake identities, passports, bank wires, and videos, too many to count. Some were locked behind digital firewalls, but the names on the file labels told a terrifying story. "Bryant's name is everywhere," the agent whispered. "And not just his. Other donors, judges, even a senator." Keanu's face paled. The agent turned to him. "This isn't just about Marshall or Bryant. This is organized, protected. Powerful people are involved." As the evidence was gathered, Keanu stepped outside for air. The sky was now bright, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like they had just opened a door to something no one wanted to see. But someone had to. His phone buzzed. It was the officer from earlier. "We've located a secondary property, deeper in Pennsylvania. Based on messages found here, we believe that's where the children were moved." "How long do we have?" Keanu asked. "Less than a day. Maybe, after this raid, they'll start hiding everything. Then go," Keanu said. "Don't wait." Back in New York, Samir sat in a safe house with Elena. He was drawing again, this time with better crayons and on clean white paper. His hands still shook, but his heart felt lighter. His newest drawing showed a man standing tall next to a little boy. Both had capes. Both smiled. In the sky above them was a sun with a face, and in its corner, tiny letters read, "Safe now, Elena." Saw the picture and cried quietly. Meanwhile, Keanu returned to the city and met with agents who now treated him not like a celebrity, but like someone who had helped change a mission. One of them handed him a folder. "You should see this," she said. Inside were documents found on the warehouse server. One page stood out. A shipment manifest from 2 weeks ago. Destinations, names, initials. One of the initials was SR, and the birth date matched Samir. They were planning to move him out of the country. the agent said. Within a week, they almost did. Keanu's hands gripped the folder tighter. Then came the news that chilled him deeper. Caleb Bryant's lawyers just released a statement. They're denying everything. He says he's never heard of Leon Marshall. Claims all of his charity work is public and clean. He's preparing for a press conference tomorrow. Keanu closed the folder slowly. Then I'll be there, he said. The agent looked up. You sure? Yes, Keanu said. People need to see the truth. That evening, Keanu sat alone in his apartment. The dinosaur sat next to his glass of water. The city lights blinked outside, but his mind wasn't on Hollywood, scripts, or premieres. It was on Samir and Elena and every other child who hadn't yet escaped. Tomorrow, the world would hear a story, not the one told on cameras, but the one whispered by a little boy who had the courage to speak up when no one else did. And Keanu, he had made a promise. He wouldn't stop now. The press conference that shook the world the next morning. Hundreds of cameras were pointed at the tall glass building in downtown Manhattan. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder on the steps outside, some holding microphones, others texting updates. Every major news network had sent someone. Something big was coming. They all knew it. Keanu Reeves arrived quietly, wearing a black suit with no tie. He didn't walk with bodyguards or assistants. He didn't wave at cameras. He just walked in through the side door, holding a small object in his hand, Samir's dinosaur. He had been invited to attend a press conference by Caleb Bryant himself. Bryant, a tech billionaire and founder of multiple children's charities, had called the event to clear his name after rumors began to spread about his connection to the warehouse raid. But what no one knew yet, not even Bryant, was that Keanu had already seen the documents tying him to the network. Inside the building, the atmosphere was tense. Journalists whispered behind their cameras. Some still didn't believe the accusations. After all, Caleb Bryant had spent years donating to schools and orphanages. He smiled in photos with politicians. He had once been named Man of the Year by a major magazine. But there was one man in the crowd who wasn't buying any of it, and that was Keanu. He took his seat near the front row, nodding at one of the agents who had helped him days earlier. The agent gave him a quick thumbs up. They had a plan. Soon, Caleb Bryant stepped onto the stage. He wore a sharp blue suit and a forced smile. Flashbulbs exploded as he raised his hand. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. Recent events have brought forward disturbing and absolutely false allegations against me. I want to be clear, I have no connection to any illegal activity. The warehouse in question was not mine. The people involved are strangers to me. I am heartbroken, truly heartbroken, to hear that children were harmed. But dragging my name into this is an attack on my work and my reputation. He paused as the room filled with quiet murmurs. I will be cooperating fully with authorities. He continued, and I trust justice will prevail. I have nothing to hide. The moderator began pointing to reporters for questions. Mr. Bryant, what about the shell company tied to the lease? Mr. Bryant, were you aware of Leon Marshall's activities? Bryant answered calmly, denying everything. But then, the room shifted. The moderator spoke again. Before we continue, we've been asked to allow a special guest to speak, someone who has recently been involved with this investigation. Keanu Reeves. The room froze. Bryant single quotes as confident. Smile twitched. Keanu stood slowly and walked toward the front. He didn't take the stage. He didn't need to. He just turned to the cameras and began to speak. I didn't come here to accuse anyone, he said quietly. I came here because a little boy named Samir whispered something at an airport, and that whisper opened the door to a darkness none of us wanted to believe. The room went silent. I've seen the drawings. I've seen the rooms. I've seen the files. And I've seen the faces of children who were too scared to speak. We can't look away anymore. He held up the toy dinosaur. This is what gave Samir courage. Not because it's plastic, but because it reminded him of strength, of someone who wouldn't be scared. He paused, then looked directly at Caleb. You say you have nothing to hide. Then show them the messages, the transfers, the trips. Let the public see it all, because the documents found in that warehouse, They have your name, not once, not twice, dozens of times. Bryant's jaw tightened. This is a setup. He snapped. Then prove it. Keanu said softly, open your accounts, release your records. A reporter shouted, do you deny? Meeting Leon Marshall. Bryant didn't answer. Another yelled, what about the house in Montenegro? Was that one of your properties? Bryant's face turned red. Keanu continued, this isn't about me, or even about him, it's about the children. And if we let fear or power silence the truth, then we've already lost. Someone began, clapping. Then another. Then the whole room erupted. Bryant turned and stormed off the stage. But it was too late. The internet was already exploding with clips of Keanu's speech. Hashtags trended instantly. News anchors interrupted regular programming. The world was watching. Later that day, federal agents raided one of Bryant's private estates in upstate New York. They found files matching those from the warehouse, a second hidden room, photographs, communication logs, and most disturbing of all, a private jet schedule showing international trips taken with no customs records. The evidence was overwhelming. Bryant was arrested within 48 hours. But it didn't end there. Other names started falling. Donors, politicians, even a celebrity manager. Each one had touched some part of the hidden system. And all of it started with a whisper in an airport. Keanu returned to the safe house where Elena and Samir were waiting. When Samir saw him, he ran into his arms. Did the bad guys go away? He asked. They're going away for a long, long time. Keanu smiled. Elena hugged them both. How can we ever thank you? You already did. Keanu said. You survived. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. But what happens next? Keanu looked down at Samir, then back at her. You live, he said, and you never let anyone take your voice again. As they sat together, the world outside began to change. News anchors spoke of justice. Foundations for survivors were formed. Whistleblowers stepped forward. For the first time in a long time, hope felt real. But none of it would have happened if a little boy hadn't whispered. The promise that made the world cry months passed since the world watched Keanu Reeves stand in front of cameras and speak the truth. The investigation that followed was bigger than anyone had imagined. The takedown of Caleb Bryant had not just removed a powerful man from his high tower. It had opened a floodgate. More victims came forward. More survivors were found. More places were uncovered. And in the middle of it all was a 7-year-old boy with big eyes, a small voice, and a toy dinosaur. Samir. His story became a symbol of courage. News shows called it the whisper that changed everything. Documentaries were made. Foundations were started. Schools were renamed. And through it all, Keanu stayed close, not as a hero, not as a movie star, but as a friend. One chilly afternoon in November, Keanu stood outside a small home in Oregon. The air smelled like pine trees and rain. Behind him, reporters waited, near their vans. But this wasn't a press event. This was something personal. Elena opened the front door and smiled. She looked healthier now, stronger, safer. She had cut her hair short. She wore a soft blue sweater and simple jeans. For the first time in months, her hands didn't shake. He's been waiting all morning, she said. Keanu stepped inside. The house was small, but warm, filled with secondhand furniture and laughter. On the walls were Samir's drawings, dinosaurs, suns, stars, and stick figures holding hands. Uncle Keanu, Samir yelled, running across the room and jumping into his arms. Keanu hugged him tightly. You grew again. I ate all my broccoli, Samir said proudly. Keanu laughed. They sat down on the floor. With toys between them, the old dinosaur still had a place of honor on the shelf. It was a little worn now, but its meaning had only grown. I heard you started school, Keanu said. Samir nodded. I got a sticker for being brave. And I told my teacher about the whisper, she cried. Keanu's smile faded slightly. You know what you did that day at the airport. It saved lives. Samir looked down. I was scared. That's what made it brave, Keanu said. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you did the right thing anyway. Samir leaned into him. I want to help other kids now. Keanu's heart swelled. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. I brought you something. Samir opened it slowly. Inside was a necklace. A silver chain with a tiny dinosaur. Pendant, this is your badge now, Keanu said. You're not just brave, you're a guardian now. Samir beamed. From the kitchen, Elena watched with tears in her eyes. He tells everyone you're his hero, she whispered when Keanu joined her. He's mine, Keanu replied. Weeks later, Keanu sat at a fundraising event for a new foundation, called Voice of the Small. It was created in Samir's honor. It would help children speak up when they couldn't find the words. It would give shelter, education, hope. The lights dimmed. A video played. Footage showed the airport, the toy dinosaur, the press conference, survivors, rescuers, and at the end, a small voice, barely above a whisper. Can you help me? My mom told me not to talk loud. The crowd went silent. Then, thunderous applause. Tears rolled down faces. Hands reached for tissues. No one left untouched. Keanu walked up to the stage slowly. He didn't read a script. He didn't prepare a speech. He just looked out at the audience, holding the dinosaur in one hand and Samir's drawing in the other. We live in a world where noise is everywhere, he said softly. But sometimes, the quietest voices carry the greatest truth. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. So if you ever hear a whisper, stop, listen, because that whisper might be the sound of someone trying to survive. The room stood to their feet. Tears, cheers, hope. Somewhere far away, in a small room at a shelter, a girl named Hannah watched the video on an old tablet. She was 10, quiet, scared. Her hands trembled. She clutched a paper in her lap, a drawing of a lion, and slowly, she turned to the volunteer beside her and whispered, "Can you help me?" And the cycle began again. Not with a scream, but with a whisper, and someone who chose to listen. Just like Keanu did, just like Samir did, because sometimes, the softest voices are the ones that change the world.